For much of the 20th century, it seemed like film and gaming were two polar opposites of entertainment. Gaming was more interactive and limited in presentation. Films had multi-million-dollar budgets and were deemed a more sophisticated form of entertainment. There may have been game adaptations of films and film adaptations of games, but games themselves being presented like films seemed out of the question. But one man found a way to blend cinematic storytelling with the interactive gameplay experience. Console technology and the ever-changing world gave a franchise, which began in 1987, a legacy matched by few. And in 2001, that franchise would receive a new title, one that would take the expectations of cinematic storytelling and bring it to unconventional territory. Hideo Kojima had the skills for designing video games and a mind for cinema. This was not by accident, as he was exposed to a plethora of films at an early age through his parents. His exposure to films were unfiltered and mostly consisted of European, Western, and horror films. Some of his all-time favorites include High and Low, Mad Max 2, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Taxi Driver. He spent his childhood, adolescence, and young adult years studying film and aspiring to enter the film industry. But as he went through his university years, his motivation for entering the film industry waned, largely due to not having anyone there to share his aspirations or to motivate his own ambitions. But he still yearned for the opportunity to produce the stories he had envisioned throughout his life. So he continued to find a way to enter the film industry until he came across the Famicom. He had become invested in games like Super Mario Bros., but ultimately saw the potential of video games expanded through the Portopia serial murder case. Kojima was impressed with the game's ability to lay out in detail how the murder had been committed, while blending in light humor, drama, and gameplay mechanics out of a 3D dungeon crawler. He became committed to joining the video game industry, much to the chagrin of his peers who at the time considered working on video games a dead-end career. Kojima wound up joining Konami in 1986, underwhelmed by not being able to work on Famicom games, but instead working on MSX games, which he felt were more limited in visuals than the Famicom and arcade games were. His first video game would be Penguin Adventure. He did not receive an official credit in the game, but he still presented many ideas that added even more gameplay than its predecessor, Arctic Adventure. The first game he received an official credit for was Metal Gear for the MSX2, a game he wasn't originally supposed to work on, only assigned the job from a senior staff member. Metal Gear was originally intended to be strictly a top-down action game, but Kojima, already aware of the MSX2's limitations, decided that the game needed to encourage intentionally avoiding combat, drawing inspiration from another one of his favorite films, The Great Escape. Conversations between protagonist Solid Snake and the crew on the other end of the codec were also implemented by Kojima as his way of fleshing out the game's story. The game would become a financial and critical success for Konami and the MSX2, but was only released in Japan and Europe. The game received even more critical acclaim when the game was ported to the Famicom and given a North American release. However, that port was criticized by Kojima, claiming that the port was developed without the consent of the original team. Nonetheless, Metal Gear would become an important part of the game industry, often cited as one of the earliest examples of the stealth genre. The success of Metal Gear would lead to the development of a sequel for international markets, Snake's Revenge. The only issue with the game was that Kojima had no involvement in the game's development, only learning about the game through one of its staff members. On a train ride, the two talked about Snake's Revenge, and the staff member acknowledged that it wasn't canonical to the first game, so he encouraged Kojima to develop a true sequel to Metal Gear, something he never intended to do. Shortly after, on that same train ride, Kojima had already come up with the general plotline of what a canonical sequel to Metal Gear would be like. Thus, in 1990 in Japan, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake was released for the MSX2, once again to critical acclaim, something that Snake's Revenge did not achieve. Outside of Metal Gear, Kojima would make his name known with two adventure titles, Snatcher, and Policenaut. The adventure genre at the time was the easiest way for him to truly flesh out the stories he wanted to tell in video games. Working on Policenauts would introduce Kojima to an artist that would go on to become one of his closest collaborators throughout his career, Yoji Shinkawa. Shinkawa was a debugger for the original release of Policenauts, before moving on to redrawing the graphics for the console ports of the game. It was during the development of Policenauts that Kojima started planning a new Metal Gear game. The new Metal Gear was originally meant for the Panasonic 3DO, until development was shifted to the PlayStation after the Great Hanshin earthquake in Kobe damaged Konami's software development building in 1995. The game was titled Metal Gear Solid to allow the game to stand on its own for the people in North America that, at the time, could not get the MSX2 Metal Gear games. This game would retain the 2D stealth gameplay in a 3D environment, and all of the character designs would be done by Yoji Shinkawa, and nearly all of the dialogue would be fully voiced.
It's been a long time, Snake.
I should have known you were behind this, Colonel.
It was released in North America and Japan in September 1998, with a European release in February 1999. Later in 1999, Metal Gear Solid would be re-released in Japan as Metal Gear Solid Integral, which would contain the English dub, giving players the option to switch between language tracks that they wanted to hear, the content that was exclusive to the North America and European release, and a third disc containing 300 VR missions. That disc would get a standalone release in North America as Metal Gear Solid VR Missions, and Europe as Metal Gear Solid Special Missions. All in all, Metal Gear Solid would be widely regarded as one of the best games of 1998, as well as one of the best-selling titles in PlayStation 1 history. But despite Metal Gear Solid's impressive accolades and technological leaps from the MSX2, there were still things Kojima wanted to do, but was forced to cut out of the game given the limitations of the PlayStation. As Metal Gear Solid was being released, development on a new sequel would begin. Before 1998 ended, it was already decided what the setting of the sequel would be. To help authenticate the setting, which would be New York City, the team would take a trip to New York City for research purposes. New York City's presence in the game was so essential that the game was almost called Metal Gear Solid 3, with the 3 being symbols of Manhattan's skyscrapers. Gameplay mechanics that Kojima wanted to include in the first game, but couldn't, would be pulled off here. Mechanics like more interactive environments, enemies communicating together to find you, and a more dynamic score that would change depending on whether or not you were being actively pursued. The game was first revealed at a private press event at Universal Studios Hollywood in 2000, followed by a public reveal the next day at E3 2000, with the 2001 release year announced. Reaction to the trailer was positive, generating enough hype to make it one of 2001's most anticipated releases. There was even high demand for rentals of the trailer at video stores. The game's first chapter, Tanker, would be finished at the end of 2000, leaving the development of the rest of the game for 2001. The score would be Kojima's first true step towards connecting his projects with the Hollywood personalities he had always admired. Kojima and sound director Kazuki Muraoka came up with the idea to recruit Harry Gregson Williams before development started on Metal Gear Solid 2. The idea came after watching the 1998 film The Replacement Killers, which Gregson Williams provided the score for. Kojima then proceeded to send Gregson Williams a mix CD of select pieces he had worked on. Flattered by the effort placed in the mix CD, Gregson Williams joined production of the game.
All the music that I create is comes to life because of the pictures that I'm watching as I compose with film. So this is one of the reasons that this project appealed to me, because I knew that I wouldn't be composing music to moving pictures. I knew that my music would be put to the pictures eventually, but I would not see the pictures first. So I thought it would be fun to do it the other way around for once.
Norihoko Hibino composed the majority of the in-game music. Hibino started his music career as a Kansas City jazz musician. His first involvement with video game scores came with the Game Boy Color Metal Gear game Ghost Babel. He worked with Kojima again on the game Zone of the Enders, before signing on to be the primary composer for this game, unlike the previous Metal Gear Solid game, which was credited under Konami's in-house band as a group. Rika Muranaka, who provided Konami with vocal themes for games like Symphony of the Night, Silent Hill, and the first Metal Gear Solid, returned to the Metal Gear series to write the game's vocal ending theme, Can't Say Goodbye to Yesterday, performed by the late Carla White. Metal Gear Solid 2 was released in North America first in November 2001. The North American audiences were treated with a surprise that was never mentioned in any of the press events for the game. While previous trailers and advertisements showed a new Metal Gear game starring Solid Snake, it was not known at the time that Solid Snake would only be playable during the Tanker chapter of the game, which was only a fourth of what the entire game would actually entail. The rest of the game would have the player controlling a brand new character, Raiden, taking place 2 years after the Tanker chapter. Raiden was meant to represent the player character learning how to play the game without subjecting Solid Snake to lessons he technically already knows, while also presenting Snake's journey from a third-person perspective and giving players the chance to experience an entire Metal Gear game as someone other than rugged old men. Snake did appear throughout the game outside of the Tanker chapter, but under the alias Iroquois Pliskin, a play on the Kurt Russell character Snake Plissken from the John Carpenter films Escape from New York and Escape from LA. Because of North America's first release, the rest of the world became aware of Raiden's presence in the game, and promotions for those territories were changed to include the new character, with Japan getting the game a few weeks after the North American release, and Europe getting the game in March 2002. Sons of Liberty would once again give the Metal Gear franchise universal accolades, high sales, and multiple Game of the Year awards. Reviewers at the time did critique Kojima's writing, calling it weird, incomprehensible, and disjointed. However, more recent retrospectives of the game have lauded Sons of Liberty for coincidentally predicting the way the digital age would be constantly monitored by the government and information that could easily be manipulated for the benefit of the people in powerful positions. Sons of Liberty would be released on the Xbox in November 2002 as Substance, featuring improvements to the game and extra content like VR missions and non-canon Snake Tales, putting Snake into events of the Big Shell chapter that dominated the game's story. Substance would be released for the PlayStation 2 the following month, with that version adding an exclusive skateboard mode using the same engine they used for Konami's skateboarding game, Evolution Skateboarding. The cliffhanger ending and unanswered questions from Sons of Liberty would remain unanswered, as Kojima's next Metal Gear game would instead focus on the origins of Solid Snake's father, Big Boss, aka Naked Snake. Snake Eater would be released in 2004 and would introduce a brand new cast ensemble to the franchise. In 2006, Snake Eater would be given a brand new updated release, Subsistence. This release would add various quality of life improvements and various extras, including the MSX2 Metal Gear games, which became the first official release of those games in North America. Unknown to players of either Snake Eater or Subsistence, or both, nearly all the new characters introduced in those games would be directly related to the Patriots plotline in Sons of Liberty. But players would not learn this until 2008 with the release of Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, the final game in the Metal Gear franchise to star Solid Snake, released exclusively for the PlayStation 3. Guns of the Patriots would reveal more about the Patriots group and would answer all of the questions left behind by the ending of Sons of Liberty. While Solid Snake's story ended with Guns of the Patriots, Kojima was not done with the franchise just yet. In 2010, Kojima continued exploring Big Boss's origins with the PlayStation Portable release of Peace Walker. Then in 2014, Kojima released Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, which would serve as a standalone prologue to the 2015 Phantom Pain, which would become Kojima's final Metal Gear game and final Konami game. After Kojima left Konami, he would form a new independent version of Kojima Productions as a spiritual successor to the subsidiary of Konami that shut down after the release of The Phantom Pain. And in 2019, the newly independent Kojima Productions would release their first game, Death Stranding. Death Stranding would be worked on by crew members and actors that helped work with him on the Metal Gear games in the past. The game's cast would be led by Norman Reedus, who had been slated to work with Kojima and film director Guillermo del Toro on a new Silent Hill game, Silent Hills. The teaser for Silent Hills was released as PT in 2014. However, with Kojima's departure from Konami, Silent Hills would be cancelled and PT would be delisted from the PlayStation Store. The success of Death Stranding would greenlight a sequel for the game, which was released in 2025. As of this production, Kojima is working with actor and director Jordan Peele to work on a new horror game, OD, which gaming journalists have compared its potential to the story elements of PT. Hideo Kojima grew up a connoisseur of cinema, leading to an interest in game development. His games completely opened up new ways to tell stories in games, while simultaneously introducing new ways to approach the action-adventure genre. With each new release in the Metal Gear franchise came new opportunities to push the technology and engine used to bring the games to life. For Sons of Liberty, this was a game that was meant to show what could be done on the PlayStation 2, while changing the conventions of plot development. Instead of going in a straight line from start to finish, Sons of Liberty would shake things up before the player got used to what was happening. Whether it was considered revolutionary or confusing, it was still considered ahead of its time and one of the best from 2001. Kojima may not be directly involved with the Metal Gear franchise anymore, but Kojima's unique, unconventional way of telling stories that incorporate his love for cinema would continue with successful games outside of Konami.
Return to those thrilling days of yesteryear with Dr. Mario 64 for your Nintendo 64. The puzzle classic returns with fast and furious Tetris-style gameplay. Stack the falling blocks correctly to clear the screen and make sure you zap those viruses as you go. The graphics are great and the gameplay grand. 1 to 4 players can go head-to-head in mind-melding mayhem. Make an appointment with Dr. Mario 64 for frantic, frenzied fun.
Come here, loser. I'm gonna autograph your face with my boot.
I'm gonna jump all over you like brown on beer.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Mrs. Marge, I'm going to tear out your hair to make donut sprinkles. Ouch!
Wanna be a millionaire? Death is your final answer. You'll vomit with excitement. You'll puke with pleasure. You'll shit with fear. Splattered brains. Infected flesh. Get excited. Get disgusted. Get pissed off. Every door leads to terror. You will see dead people. They'll see you. Maximum pulse. Maximum bleeding. Maximum strain. You will go through a live inferno. But there are only two options. Virtual house of horror. Ill bleed.
This is real.
Coming this winter.
I've really noticed that we've got like the core group of gamers online. They live Nintendo.
It's really cool in the chat rooms. We sit there. If you have a game question or anything you want to pose to us, we can answer, game questions, code questions.
Yeah, what's great about the bulletin board is it's like these kids have the chance to be their own gameplay counselor and help each other out with the codes.
What do you think about special guests in our chat rooms?
I love it. We had Griffey, #1 sports star.
Yeah. You point and click on the What's New button and it tells you any new kind of stuff we put in the area. So.
Well, what I like is the Play It Loud area. All the contests are put there. That's where the Loud House is.
The Loud House is there 3 hours every weekday. I mean, we're starting at, 4 p.m. Pacific time. We run straight through 3 more hours. 1, 2, 3. We got all 3 counselors. Got a question, it's got to be answered.
If you have a game question or anything you want to pose to us, we can answer, game questions, code questions. You want to just chat, we can just yap.
Nintendo Power is the official source of gaming information from Nintendo.
One of the things that I think distinguishes the magazine in a lot of ways are the graphics and the maps.
Classified information, the most popular feature in the magazine every single month. Codes, codes, codes. Weird, wacky, wonderful, strange, cool, amazing.
Some of the other things that we see in the magazine that really grab people's eyes are the in-depth interviews that we do. For instance, going down to Angel Studios and seeing Ken Griffey, and it's intense. I mean, that's cutting edge.
Pack Watch, upcoming stuff, insider info, stuff in development.
Players Pulse gives a chance for the readers to speak out. Whether it's good or bad, we print it.
It's a hot mag. You gotta subscribe.
All the information, Player's Guides have.
If you want to talk about strategy, these things are really packed. And maps galore. Every single stage of the game they'll go through, pick it apart, give you all the hottest tips.
Every stage, every item, it's all here.
Nintendo Consumer Service can help you with product release date information, general questions you may have, system setup help, or with ordering Nintendo Power Magazine and Player's Guides filled with the tricks and tips from the pros. And for recorded information about games, call the 24-hour Hot Title Game Info line at 206-885-7529. Or for game counselors' tips on games, you can call 1-900-288-0707. This is a pay call at 95 cents per minute. Callers under 18 must have parents' permission. Nintendo's gone totally cyber. Connect online with game fans from all across the country by tapping into Nintendo Power Source for all the latest game info. Call 1-800-255-3700 for more information.
It all starts with this. A jewel containing the ultimate power.
That's the Chaos Emerald! Now I know what's going on. The military has mistaken me for the likes of you. So, where do you think you're going with that emerald? Say something, you fake hedgehog!
Chaos Control!